Hi everyone. I just wanted to do a quick video to bring you up to date with some changes that are happening to PHP for this semester. So as you will be aware, the university put in place a suspension on all classes this week. And so that would give us an opportunity to move as much as we possibly could to online in order to avoid having mass numbers of students on campus and to ensure your wellbeing as well as the wellbeing of staff and also the broader community. So these times that we're in at the moment are really uncertain. That, as you're aware, that COVID-19 has been declared a pandemic. And so what we are seeing is a really great example of some public health strategies that are being put into place in order to prevent the transmission of COVID-19, but also to protect the health of the broader population. And you'll also be seeing examples of other domains of public health, such as monitoring and surveillance, and of course, promotion of messages like hand washing, social distancing, and also coughing and sneezing etiquette. So what's happening with COVID-19 is great for us in terms of teaching, and no doubt we'll be drawing upon that. But what it does also mean is that there are some changes to how we're delivering PHP for you guys this semester. So I've been working this week with the teaching team to make some changes. My goal has been to keep the changes as minimal as possible to ensure that whatever we're doing has the least amount of impact and stress on you guys. But of course, these times are uncertain, and so it could be that there may have to be some more changes depending on how this situation plays out. So what I'm going to do is I've got a little bit of a PowerPoint, and I'll put my slides up and just talk you through what is going to happen at this stage for the rest of this semester. So what you'll see is that, as I said, we're keeping changes as minimal as possible to you guys, but there are changes. And so you do need to be across those. Just in terms of what will be changing, the first major change is how we're delivering your workshops. So your workshops, your face-to-face workshops will no longer run. And instead what we are doing is moving all of your workshops to online real-time delivery using Zoom. Your facilitators, the time of your workshop groups remain unchanged. So our face-to-face workshops will no longer run, and instead what you will have is an online real-time workshop that will run at the same time as your originally scheduled workshop. You will have the same workshop facilitator, you will be in the same groups. You can access the Zoom link for your workshop each week via LMS. So I'm currently in the process of setting those up. So you'll see those each week in the LMS, and they've been restricted to just your workshop group. Okay. If you haven't used Zoom before, please ensure that you do download Zoom onto your personal devices. I have put a link up on LMS for you to be able to download that. And the other thing that I'll also put up are some instructions on how to actually use Zoom. From your end, it's really straightforward. You just need to make sure that you've downloaded the program, and then each week you'll log into LMS and you'll click on the Zoom link for your workshop group, and it will automatically load. Now, the other thing is around the length of the workshops. So your Zoom sessions, the length of those is likely to vary from facilitator to facilitator and from week to week. So it will really depend on things like the student numbers and the activities that we have planned, and of course how much preparation and input and participation that you guys put into these. We are having to modify our workshops, so there are activities that we would have planned to do with you in a face-to-face session that we either have to modify for the online platform, or that we may not be able to do it all. And so we're having to think about what else we could be doing with you to ensure that you're still progressing through this subject, that you're still meeting the subject intended learning outcomes, and that you're still adequately prepared for the assessments. So we're currently working on that process, and we'll continue to be working on that for the remainder of the semester. The other thing, just to note that the times are very uncertain, and so just be aware that we may need to cancel Zoom sessions. In the circumstances in which a staff member becomes unwell, or perhaps someone that they care for does, then we would have to cancel, we may have to cancel a workshop if we can't get another facilitator to run that. If we have to do that, then we will, of course, inform you of that and hopefully be able to give you plenty of notice. But we'll also look at what other options we've got for you to ensure that you maintain, that you're up to date and maintain progressing through the subject. The staff also understand that you yourselves may become unwell, or that you might need to care for somebody who is unwell. And therefore that might mean that you can't attend a Zoom session, just in the same way that you wouldn't be able to attend a face-to-face session. If that happens, please let your facilitator know, and also please let me know as soon as possible. That way we can ensure that you've got all of the appropriate materials that you need to catch up on any work that you might have missed. Okay. You will need to attend your Zoom workshops having completed all of the pre-workshop materials online. So just in the same way that you needed to prepare for those face-to-face sessions, the same things apply to the Zoom sessions. The Zoom sessions will run under the assumption that you have done this work. So we will assume that you have done the required reading for that week. We will assume that you have worked through the SWAY materials, any playlists, videos, audio recordings that are up on LMS each week, and also that you have completed the weekly online task. Okay, so we will assume that you have worked through all of that before you attend your Zoom session. You should attend your Zoom session expecting to actively participate. Facilitators are going to be using a variety of strategies in these sessions. This might include things like whole group discussions. With Zoom, we have the opportunity to use what are called breakout rooms. So that is, we can actually assign you to smaller groups to be able to work on tasks for a designated period of time, and then bring everybody back to do some feedback. There are opportunities for facilitators to share screens, just like I am with you. There are opportunities to put up a whiteboard so that facilitators can write up the feedback that we're getting on activities. That can be saved and can be shared with you all. So there's a variety of strategies that we'll be using throughout these Zoom sessions, and it will require you to be actively participating. So, you know, the workshops are still designed to extend your thinking and the ability to use information in new ways based on the preparation that you do prior to coming to that workshop. We won't be running Zoom sessions for facilitators just to repeat what information is on LMS already. That's not what the purpose of these Zoom sessions are. You should, of course, keep an eye on your student email and LMS for regular communication updates from either myself, your facilitator, and of course the university about any other changes that might need to happen. And so this is a constantly evolving situation. And so it is really important that you remain up to date and up to speed with what is happening at a subject level, but also at a campus and a university-wide level. We strongly encourage you to attend Zoom sessions in order to keep up to date with the content. It's an opportunity for you to seek clarification about things that perhaps you haven't understood in the online material. There's opportunities, of course, for you to be asking questions. The Zoom sessions, along with all of the pre-workshop material, including your readings, your sways, the online activities, all will inform the end of semester exam. But it's also really important that you attend to maintain contact with academic staff, as well as with your peers, that we're practicing social distancing as a prevention strategy from a public health perspective, but that doesn't mean that we can't still stay connected. I don't want students to feel as though we are not here for you. For us, it is really business as usual, although it is a slightly modified business as usual. Where staff are still available, we are still working, we are here to support your learning and to keep you progressing through this subject. We want you to maintain contact with us. We think that is so important. The more engaged you are in this online space with staff and your peers, we know the better that you'll actually do. Okay, and at this stage we have no plans to record the Zoom sessions, and the reason for that is that each Zoom session will be slightly different, but what we will make available to you are the slides that we're using, and of course any sort of feedback that we get during those workshops. We can make things like those whiteboard feedback sessions available to students. We can add additional resources, and we can add activities to LMS for students to be able to work through. But if you only do that and not attend the Zoom sessions, you're not getting the full picture or the full story about the weekly topics. So it is really important that you are attending those Zoom sessions. All right, some other changes that are going to be happening in relation to some of your assessment tasks. So I just want to run through what is going to be happening in terms of each of your assessments. So for assessment 1, you have the facilitated discussion. This will no longer go ahead. Okay, we think that it is unreasonable for you to have the skills, particularly in relation to the use of technology, to be able to facilitate a class discussion in the online space. And so what we have done instead of the facilitated group discussion is that you will complete an annotated bibliography. This will be done in the same groups that you already were allocated to for the facilitated discussion, and you'll still be using the weekly readings, although instead of one reading, you'll be using multiple readings. I will be shortly putting up instructions and a new marking guide on LMS for this assessment, and there will also be a change to the due date for this assessment. So this assessment will be pushed right back till the end of semester to give everybody plenty of time to get their heads around what is required and to be able to work through and complete this assessment, because you'll need to maintain some contact with your group members to do that. So we want to give you as much time as we possibly can in order for you to do this particular assessment. So I will do a video, a separate video about this assessment task, this new assessment task, but that probably won't be for probably at least another week at this stage. All right, assessment 2, your multimedia presentation. There are some minor modifications that we've had to make to this assessment. So the guidelines at this stage are around minimising physical contact and practicing social distancing measures. So with that, we feel that it is unreasonable to expect you to do a physical site visit of an organisation. So instead, what we will be getting you to do is to conduct an online visit of one organisation from a list that we will be providing, and that list will be in the instructions for that assessment that I will put up on LMS in due course. So there will be some modified instructions. So I've modified the instructions. I have modified the frequently asked questions for that particular assessment, and I will put those on LMS shortly. Please note there are no changes to the marking guide for this. When we looked at the marking guide and we looked at what we were asking you to do, you could still meet the criteria despite not doing a physical visit and only doing an online visit. Okay, so keep an eye on LMS for the modified version of this particular assessment. All right, assessment 3, weekly online task. There are no changes whatsoever to this. You should continue working through all of the pre-workshop material as originally planned. So there are no changes to the online tasks. There are no changes to the marks for those. There's no changes to the due dates. It is still that you're expected to complete that before your Zoom workshop session. So the topics remain the same. The only change will be there's now a shift in weeks. So when classes resume next Tuesday, we will be picking up in week 3. So you need to have all of your week 3 materials completed before your week 3 workshops beginning next Tuesday. For those of you in Bundoora who have a workshop on the Monday, you won't have a workshop next Monday as you have already done week 3. You'll pick up the following week and that will be week 4. Okay. So no changes to your weekly online tasks. The exam, your final piece of assessment, there are no changes at this stage. All of your online materials, your readings, your sway, your Zoom workshops, the content will all still be examinable. Now, my understanding from the university is that centrally administered exams like the one for this subject will proceed. There may be a delay as to when those exams are, just because semester is being pushed back a week because of this week-long suspension of classes. But the other thing that they are reviewing is also the venues for those to ensure that we maintain appropriate mass gathering guidelines. So please monitor the student frequently asked question page around that. If I get any notification around the exam, I will let you know as soon as I do. And the other thing I just want to point out is that there are no changes to the weighting of any of your assessments. They all remain as they originally were. Okay. So please make sure that you just go back and review assessments 1 and 2, that you're across all of your instructions and what those expectations are. I will do a video, as I said, for that new assessment task 1, and I will also do a separate video for the multimedia presentation as well. Okay, so we're asking you still in that first assessment to work in groups, but we want you to follow social distancing guidelines, which are recommended by our public health experts. So there's a number of ways that you can connect with the people in your group. You can use Zoom, so you will all download that to be able to use for the workshops. So you could actually use that to communicate with your team members for that first assessment. Other options include things like Google Hangouts. GoToMeetings is another online platform, and they allow you to have video interactions just like this one. You could use things like FaceTime or Skype, which you're probably already familiar with. Of course, emails is another way that you can keep up to date and communicate with each other. There's Trello, which is an online space where you can plan projects. So it's a great way of being able to plan your assessment, share resources, keep on track of what tasks need to happen and who's responsible. And I've got a link there for you for that. And the other one that you're probably already familiar with, of course, is Google Docs as well. If you do decide to meet in person, then I would highly recommend you follow social distancing guidelines. So that is that you keep contact to at least 1.5 metres, and that you also limit your contact time with each other. And so the current recommendations is no more than 2 hours in the same room. 15 minutes if you can't maintain that 1.5 metre contact. Okay, please keep up to date with the guidelines that are coming out through the Department of Health and Human Services. I will pop a link on LMS for you so that you can keep up to date. And the other thing is, if you are going to meet in person, is to remember to practice good hygiene. So making sure that you wash your hands before and after, that you avoid physical contact, so handshake, hugs, etc. And that you follow good sneezing and coughing etiquette, so coughing into, or sneezing into a tissue, disposing of that and washing your hands, or coughing or sneezing into your elbow. And also remembering to wash or sanitize your hands after as well. I personally don't encourage you to meet in person. I think that DHHS have set up these guidelines as a prevention measure, good public health evidence-based strategy, and we really should be following that. After all, this is a subject about principles of public health practice, and part of our role as public health professionals is to be promoting these messages, and if we're promoting them, then we should also be practicing them. So I would personally discourage you to meet up in person, and that's why I've given you some other alternatives. But of course, at the end of the day, you have to make the decision about what is best for you. Remembering that these measures are put in place to protect us as individuals, but to also protect the broader population, and in particular vulnerable population groups. And we're actually going to be looking at vulnerable population groups in week 4, and I think there'll be some interesting material based on COVID-19 that we'll be able to use in that week. I would encourage you, as I said, this is a really interesting time for public health. So, I would encourage you to stay up to date and informed about what is happening, because there'll be lots of things that are happening in the media, that recommendations from public health experts that we can draw on in this subject. But also be mindful about where you're getting your information from, making sure that it is coming from credible sources, that you're not just looking at anybody claiming to be an expert on social media. So sticking to organisations like the World Health Organization at a national level, our Department of Health and Human Services are reliable sources that we should be sticking to. All right, so just to wrap up, what can you do now to keep up to date? Ensure that you've completed the week 3 pre-workshop online content, including that weekly online task. So you'll need to have all of that done before your workshops resume from next Tuesday. Okay, so remember, from Tuesday, we are picking up at week 3. Okay. Set up a schedule for yourselves. So things will be changing, and these changes that we are implementing only relate to PHP. I can't speak for what is happening in your other subjects. Some of you may still have some face-to-face subjects. They might be modified. Some of your subjects may also be moving to fully online. You'll be notified, if you haven't already, by your subject coordinator about what the plan is for those subjects. But set yourselves up with a new schedule. So, timetable your workshops, whether they're online, face-to-face, in real time or not. Make sure that you have maintain a really good schedule. Look at your other classes, look at all of your assessments, map those out. I think it's really important to include time in your schedule to maintain connections with family and friends, that if you are self-isolating, if you're being quarantined, or if you're just practicing social distancing, it's really important that we maintain good social connections. That doesn't have to be physical. There are other ways that we can do that: phone, email, Skype, Zoom, whatever that might be. That's really important for both our social and our mental health. Maintain physical activity and schedule that in, and also your meals. I think it's really important, you can see my last point, to maintain your own health and well-being. Eat well, sleep well, keep physically active, keep informed, but don't become consumed by the information out there. As I said, look at the credibility of information. Limit social media and TV if you're starting to feel that this situation is having an impact. I know for myself personally, even though I'm a public health practitioner, I understand what is going on. I too have been overwhelmed. And so I have actually deleted social media off my mobile devices. And I'm ensuring that I'm staying informed, but I'm not being bombarded with information that is opinion-based, unreliable, and just frankly quite overwhelming. So for me, that's been really important to be able to maintain some really good, positive mental health. Practice things like mindfulness or meditation. Of course, we know that physical activity is good, not only for our physical health, but our mental health, but there are other things that we can do. There are lots of really good apps out there to help with practicing mindfulness. So personally, I use Smiling Minds and practice sort of 3-minute to 6-minute daily mindfulness activities, whatever works for you. Okay. In order to also stay up to date, review changes to assessments 1 and 2, just so that you're familiar with what is happening. At this point in time, as I record this, I haven't got those instructions up, but I certainly will have them up very shortly. And then finally, stay up to date with the latest news from the university. The most reliable source to find out what is happening at the university level is to go to that student frequently asked question page. I have put the link on LMS for you, and you have access via the La Trobe homepage. That is the source of truth. If you've got any questions about what is on there, then please post questions to the discussion board, or you're more than welcome to email myself or Susan Chong, who is the instance coordinator, and we can try and answer those questions. But we are also relying on those staff and student frequently asked question pages to keep us informed. So we may not have all of the answers for you. So I hope that brings you up to speed. Of course, if you've got any concerns, any questions, please let us know. Post them to the discussion board on LMS. So there is a question and answer discussion board on LMS that all students have access to. Our preference is that you post questions there so that we can give the responses to everybody, unless of course it's something of a personal nature, and then by all means feel free to email myself, Susan, or your facilitator, or all of us, okay? And we'll do our best to answer those. Please take care of yourselves, look after each other, and please try and stay healthy and well. And I will keep you posted of any changes or any new information as it comes to hand. Thanks, guys.